And we're kicking off with Roman Reigns, whose matches are a rarity these days, but last weekend, the Tribal Chief was in action at a Kansas City Live event. In a rematch from Elimination Chamber, Reigns faced his former friend turned foe Sami Zayn, and despite the best efforts of the Canadian, it was Reigns who retained his title. This marked Reigns' first match in over 2 months, and the finish saw interference by Solo Sikoa, and Reigns had plenty to say after the match. Addressing the crowd in Missouri, Reigns said that he felt like he wasted his time coming to this event, and suggested that this would be his final time competing in Kansas City. Reigns was firing on all cylinders as he said that the fans were trash, which is likely why they related to Sami Zayn so much, and said he'd give 5 more minutes for the audience to enjoy. As Reigns delivered a post-match beatdown on Zayn, L.A. Knight ran to the ring and was able to hit the Tribal Chief with a blunt force trauma to the delight of the crowd. As Reigns and Paul Heyman retreated to the stage, Knight told the duo that they will soon be calling him the Champ and him the Chief, and they, like everyone, will know this is L.A. Knight's game. WWE hasn't booked a Reigns vs. Knight match yet, but it seems very likely to happen at Crown Jewel, especially as the pair interacted during this week's SmackDown. SmackDown went off the air with Reigns standing tall, but this live event ended much differently, as the megastar has his eyes on the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. Tonight's Raw will serve as the season premiere of the Red brand, and will feature Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso defending their undisputed tag team titles against Damian Priest and Finn Balor. It was Priest and Balor who lost the titles to Rhodes and Uso at Fastlane, but they could soon be winning the gold back thanks to a non-Judgment Day member. According to reports, one idea being floated around is for Jimmy Uso to show up and cost his brother and Cody the gold in an act that would have long-term implications. This act would keep the slow burn storyline between the two brothers going that would culminate in a match between the two at WrestleMania 40. As for the present, it was only recently that the Judgment Day and Bloodline formed an allegiance of sorts, so Jimmy helping Priest and Balor could mean the Judgment Day gets something in return. Roman Reigns has made it clear that he doesn't want Cody and Jey appearing on his show, SmackDown. If Jimmy costs them the gold, neither man will be able to appear on the Blue brand. But what do you think of this idea? Should Jimmy cost his brother and Cody the tag gold tonight, or is a title change too soon? Sound off in the comments. After NXT handily beat AEW Dynamite in last week's Tuesday Night War, Tony Khan had plenty to say, but much of what he had to say was not about his company. Khan threw shade at The Undertaker and John Cena not being able to draw 1 million viewers, which earned a lot of criticism from fans and those in the wrestling business alike. Many pointed out that AEW couldn't even draw over 609,000 with a stacked show of their own, and on his Hall of Fame podcast, Booker T weighed in on Khan's comments. He said, "I try not to dig at Tony Khan or anything like that, just because he's got to try to run a business, but at the same time, I gotta take a dig at this last comment that he made about the NXT rating. He said that it was the first time that John Cena and The Undertaker appeared in front of less than 1 million people for WWE, and the thing is, he's got Edge. He's got Christian over there, he's got all those guys, and they've never performed in front of 600,000, so it's like, when you say stuff like that, you might want to think about it before you say stuff like that. You know, because Edge was in the main event. Edge was in the main event of that show, and they drew 609K. Tony Khan was talking about Shawn Michaels not winning the Booker of the Year award. Personally, I'm hoping and praying that that's the last thing that Shawn Michaels will be thinking about was a year-end award. But on the other hand, I think Shawn Michaels is doing a hell of a job with the NXT brand, creating moments as well as magic at the same time, and getting these young guys to the point where they need to be more than anything, because NXT is still a developmental group, and the object of that game down there is to get those guys promoted to the next level, and hopefully get somebody else to take their spot. It's about creating talent, I think, in WWE, and I think that's what that brand is all about." Booker added that he doesn't see the big picture of Khan's motivations, and said that while he doesn't mind trash talking, it comes across as childish when the boss is the one doing it. Booker then said that Khan's internet stuff doesn't paint him in the best light, and encouraged the AEW president to try a different tactic from here on. When WWE sources reached out to Ringside News, they said that no one is panicking that Khan has declared war, as it feels like Tony Khan has been at war with WWE for some time. In fact, the source said that Khan has spent more time at war with WWE than he spent building AEW stars and AEW itself for a very long time. The source added, "He's viewed as a spoiled rich kid who just wants everyone's attention with his temper tantrums." AEW may have put on a great show, but fans will likely remember Title Tuesday for Tony Khan's online rants, as AEW's president has truly overshadowed those performing in the ring. Over to AEW Collision, as last week's show took place in the Huntington Center in Toledo, Ohio, which was on track to being a sellout show, thanks in part to very low ticket prices. With tickets on sale for as low as $10, the shows sold very well, but the problem is that the show was set up for 4,000 people when the arena can hold 8,000. Even if AEW sold every ticket they had for the show, the arena would still only be half full, hence why unflattering photos have emerged online, especially during Adam Copeland's segment. On Twitter, fans had a field day with the image of Copeland appearing in front of a very small crowd compared to what he's been used to in WWE, with one user calling it all empty wrestling. One could argue that AEW shouldn't rent out venues much larger than they need, which has resulted in these unflattering photos, as things continue to look very poor for Tony Khan's company. It remains to be seen what actions, if any, Tony Khan will take to combat negative images like these, as once again, these photos are images that AEW definitely doesn't want fans to see. While AEW continues to struggle to fill shows, WWE has been breaking records with their events, so it should come as no surprise that WWE triumphed in the second week of October. The Collision show we mentioned featured the lowest attendance between the two companies, while SmackDown in Tulsa, Oklahoma saw a jam-packed crowd with 10,786 tickets sold. We'll have to see how things pan out for both companies, but for right now, WWE and AEW are going in opposite directions when it comes to filling the seats at shows. On the March 11th, 2022 SmackDown, Big E suffered a broken neck, and with it being over a year since the injury, fans have been left wondering if he'll ever wrestle again. Speaking to the Toronto Sun recently, Kofi Kingston gave an update, saying he's happy that Big E is doing well physically as well as mentally. Kofi added that Big E is almost back to 100% and is able to live his everyday life and lifts weights just like he did before the neck injury happened, adding that things could have been a lot worse. There's no timetable for Big E's in-ring return if it ever happens, and whatever comes next for Big E, it's great that he's feeling great and is close to 100%. More faction news, as Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits have become quite the unit on SmackDown and are currently feuding with the LWO. Given that the LWO has 5 male superstars and Lashley's group has 3, the numbers aren't fair if the two sides do battle at Survivor Series, but things could be evened out very soon. We've previously reported that WWE is considering adding Odyssey Jones to Lashley's faction, despite Jones being a Raw talent, but the 5th member could be someone Lashley knows well. New reports have said that Cedric Alexander could be added to the group, with the belief that the two sides could face off at Survivor Series inside Wargames. Alexander, of course, has a history with Lashley, as the pair were part of the Hurt Business, and Alexander has spoken in the past about reuniting with the Almighty. If a reunion does happen, then the two sides could have an epic match inside Wargames, but we'll have to wait and see if these two new members get introduced first. Now, AEW Title Tuesday may not have gone as the company wanted, but with Dynamite returning to Wednesday nights this week, Tony Khan is looking to get things back on track. This week's show will see AEW continue on the road to full gear, and will feature the return of the Icon Sting. The Stinger last appeared for AEW at WrestleDream, where he tried to save Darby Allin from an assault by Christian Cage, Luchasaurus, and Nick Wayne, which led to the debut of Adam Copeland. It was announced that Sting will be addressing the crowd in Houston, Texas at this week's Dynamite, and while it wasn't said what he'd be saying, some fans have a worrying prediction. Many fans on social media made it clear that they feel that Sting will be announcing his retirement on the show, or that it could be the start of a retirement tour for the legendary wrestler. After all, Bryan Danielson recently announced that he's going to have one more year of full-time wrestling, and now fans are convinced that Sting will have something similar to say this Wednesday. Ultimately, the only way to know for sure what Sting is going to say is by tuning into Dynamite, and it'll be interesting to hear from the Icon in his first appearance since WrestleDream. During last week's Collision, Tony Schiavone made a surprise appearance behind the commentary desk alongside Nigel McGuinness and Kevin Kelly, and this call came from the very top. The Wrestling Observer Daily Update states that Tony Khan made the decision to have Schiavone as lead announcer, but we don't know if this will be a one-off or a regular thing going forward. For years, Chris Hero, also known as Cassius Ohno, has made a name for himself in dozens of promotions, and now, after a 3-year hiatus, he'll be getting back in the ring. Hero's most recent match was during a March 2020 taping of NXT UK, in which he was in a battle royal, but the knockout artist will compete next month for West Coast Wrestling. During the promotion's most recent event, fellow NXT alum Timothy Thatcher faced JT Thorne, and when Thatcher refused to stop his post-match beatdown, Hero made himself known. Hero added that he'll face Thatcher at the promotion's Whiplash show on November 17th, adding that he won't be facing Chris Hero the Matchmaker, but rather Chris Hero, Knockout Artist. In addition to West Coast Pro, Hero works backstage as a producer for AEW, and while many hope to see him reunite with old tag partner Claudio Castagnoli, he'll first make his in-ring return next month. Away from the world of wrestling, Tony Khan is one of the owners of the Jacksonville Jaguars, but it seems like the NFL team should focus on paying their Directv bills. On social media, a photo went viral which shows a screen in the Jaguars stadium with a message indicating that bills need to be paid to continue using Directv. Several screens in the stadium simply said, "Pay your bills," and until Tony Khan and his allies do just that, don't expect any Directv coverage at the home games for the Jaguars. During last week's Dynamite, Juice Robinson was involved in a segment that has split audiences, with some saying it used anti-Semitic tropes aimed at AEW World Champion MJF. Robinson brought out a roll of quarters with the champ's last name written on them, saying he would throw the coins in MJF's face that infuriated the man himself. MJF has spoken at length about facing anti-Semitic bullying in his life, including having coins thrown at him as a child, which is why some feel this week's segment crossed a line. During his Strictly Business podcast, Eric Bischoff agreed with that assessment, said that it showed a lack of judgment on MJF and Tony Khan's part, especially given the ongoing conflict overseas. In the DMs of a fan who criticized the segment, Tony Khan was very flippant, saying that sharing accurate stories from TMZ was hardly helping his situation. This sparked another backlash for Khan as the AEW president continues to drum up controversy. And what did you think to the segment that made it to broadcast on last week's Dynamite? Since launching AEW, Tony Khan has always tried to be seen as a much different kind of boss than Vince McMahon, but are some AEW talent taking advantage of Khan's good nature? During his Extreme Life podcast, Matt Hardy seemed to say so, as on his show, Hardy said that some AEW talent are given ideas and don't do them simply because they don't want to. Hardy even said that when a talent is off TV due to creative differences, it's often not that AEW don't have an idea, but that the talent simply don't want to do what is being presented. Hardy said some talent will just hang out and be off TV until they figure out something they actually want, and we doubt this attitude would exist if Vince McMahon were running things. Matt stopped short of naming any AEW talent who have done this, but according to the veteran, some in AEW simply don't want to do what they've been told by The Office. At this time, Jade Cargill is WWE's hottest free agent, with questions remaining as to whether she'll be on Raw, SmackDown, or NXT. Cargill has already appeared at last week's Stacked NXT, as well as last Friday's season premiere of SmackDown, but Rhea Ripley is ready for the ex-AEW star if she comes to Raw. While speaking to the Sporting News Australia, Ripley addressed Cargill's arrival in WWE and was open to stepping in the ring with the former TBS champion. "I'm very excited to see what she brings to WWE, I really am. Like you said, she's a big name and a lot of people are watching and waiting for her debut. We don't know which brand she's going to be on yet. It could be Raw, it could be SmackDown, it could be NXT. No one really knows exactly what's going on. If it's Raw, I mean, that's my show. Mommy runs Raw. The Judgment Day, we run Raw. So if Jade wants to come to my brand, then I would love to step in the ring with her and show her exactly why Mommy is always on top. Because I've watched bits and pieces of her from her time in the other company, and she's fantastic and she believes in herself and she is a star. She believes she's a star, which is always the most dangerous thing. When someone believes in themselves, they're very hard to stop. But I'm also Mommy. Ha! Jade Cargill caused quite the buzz at WWE Fastlane, where she appeared on the kickoff show. And do you want to see Cargill versus Ripley? Let us know in the comments. On SmackDown, Nick Aldis was introduced as the new general manager of the Blue brand, and while this has been great news for the Brit, it has an unfortunate effect on others. On October 27th, Dungeon Wrestling, the promotion run by the Hearts, will hold their WrestleWeen event, but that show is now missing its main event. On Instagram, the promotion explained that the original main event would have seen Aldis face Davey Boy Smith Jr., but with both men being unavailable, the match is off. The promotion wished Smith a speedy recovery from his health issues and thanked Aldis for his contributions over the years and congratulated him on his WWE role. The Wrestling Observer newsletter confirmed that Aldis has indeed pulled out of the appearance, and it is believed that Aldis won't be making any in-ring appearances elsewhere now that he's with WWE. WWE had previously obliged Aldis to wrestle elsewhere while he was working backstage as a producer, but now that he's on TV, WWE doesn't want him selling tickets for other promotions. WWE has told Aldis that for the moment he won't be wrestling elsewhere, implying that situation may change, but for now, the only place you'll see the Brit is on WWE SmackDown. In June, after several delays, AEW Fight Forever was finally launched, and while the game features a stacked roster, not every elite talent was available at launch. Notable names missing from the launch product include FTR, The Acclaimed, Jake Hager, Saraya, and many more, and now AEW is looking to bolster its video game roster. Fightful Select reports that AEW has been scanning talent to add to the game, and while there's no word on who's been scanned, there'll soon be some new talent in Fight Forever. Yesterday, we reported on Davey Boy Smith Jr., who was unable to compete at MLW Slaughterhouse due to appendicitis and a battle with diverticulitis. In an update, it's been revealed that Smith is out of the hospital and is recovering at home after a lengthy surgery that saw part of his colon be removed. Smith has said that he was in the hospital for 4 days, and his issues before the surgery were painful as hell, and we are wishing the Hart Dynasty member a full and speedy recovery. And we're ending today with CJ Perry, who debuted for AEW at All Out, and at first, it seemed that she and Miro would be forming a partnership on TV. While Miro has since rejected her offer to manage him, Perry is still on the hunt for new talent to manage, but don't expect the hot, flexible one to be stepping into the ring herself. During an interview with Fightful, Perry was taken aback when she learned that she competed 230 times for WWE and said her goal in AEW is to make champions and scout talent. When asked about plans to wrestle, Perry was non-committal to the idea, so while it may happen, Perry is hardly pushing to get back in the ring. Perry teased managing Action Andretti last week, and Andretti will face Miro on this week's Collision, where the former Lana will be able to put her managing skills to good use.